or having neighbours further away from you is a major benefit. Having that massive space in between you means that you're going to be a lot less annoying. Whether you are thinking of buying yourself a hobby farm, or you're just watching this video because you want to suss out your lifestyle options here in Australia, I'm going to let you know the reality of owning a hobby farm. This is obviously based on my opinion from my experiences. We've had our hobby farm for about 1.5 years now, and if you watch us regularly, you'll know that we're actually selling up. But I'm not here to slam hobby farms because I actually think they're an awesome option. Firstly, I want to tell you what a hobby farm is, for those of you who do not know or haven't heard of it before. So it's basically a small farm under 50 acres and can be used for a number of things. It's usually not for a primary source of income, so it might be for a secondary source of income, or you might keep horses on it, or even just run it, I guess, as a country estate. And if anything, I guess that latter option is probably what we've done. So we don't farm anything, we don't have animals or crops. The only animals we've got are our 3 dogs, and yeah, they're definitely not being farmed. Having space means that you have business opportunities. And I'm not just talking about farming, although that's an obvious one. So as well as farming, you've also got the option to run business from home, which you might not otherwise have the space to if you were living on a smaller property. A lot of people on acreages do run a business out of their home, and the major benefit to that is that they're then not paying rent on a premises. Secondly, on an acreage, you don't ever really run out of room. Your family has space to grow. Having an acreage gives you the possibility of keeping various families, i.e. your children and their family, on your own property, and so that you're all close by but not completely in each other's pockets by being in the same house. Obviously that is council permitting, and some councils are easier than others to deal with. With an acreage property, the potential to live off grid actually increases. You can have solar on most houses, but usually with an acreage property, you've got plenty of room to grow your own veggies, to keep your own chickens for eggs and all those kind of things, or anything else that you wanted. Also, very often we have tank water, so we're not paying water bills either. So the likelihood of you being able to live off grid is a lot higher than if you were in a property in town. I think with the way that bills have gone up incredibly over the last few years, living off grid is actually quite an attractive option. Or having neighbours further away from you is a major benefit. And the reason it's a major benefit is not because I want to be antisocial. You don't need to worry about being inconsiderate. I can't possibly be inconsiderate because my neighbours can't hear me. If my kids are shouting, I don't care. If my dogs are barking, I do care, but the neighbours don't because they can't hear it. Having that massive space in between you means that you're going to be a lot less annoying. When you live on an acreage property, you're going to learn a lot more skills, because when you've got, for example, I think our like one of our fence lines must be about 500 metres. You can't really pay someone to do 500 metres of fencing unless you're absolutely freaking loaded. So you have to learn a lot of new skills, and it's not just that one thing. When you increase the size of a property, nothing is ever simple. It's not easy, and it's certainly not cheap to get someone else to do it. So it becomes something that you have to take on yourself, and because of that you have to get skilled up. So a lot of these people that live on acreages, they're pretty savvy when it comes to most things DIY. Obviously some people do that better than others, but everybody on acreage is giving it a go because they don't want to have to fork out goodness knows how many thousands for every single little job. One of the things that I love the most about acreage is being out in nature. So I look out of my window in the morning and I don't see other houses, I don't see other people. I'm looking out and I'm seeing paddocks, and I'm seeing kangaroos in the paddocks. I'm seeing like these beautiful birds. In all fairness, actually, we've got the beautiful birds at the last property as well. but there's more of them here. You know, when you're having a stressful time and you get out in nature and you feel a lot better, we've got that around us all the time. I love being able to go for a walk on our own property and there is no one else around. Obviously, acreage life is not always easy. Some might even call it an uphill struggle. As I mentioned before, the cost of living on acreage can actually get pretty high, especially if you want to pay other people to do jobs for you. It can frankly get pretty ridiculous. Obviously, there are costs involved in running an acreage, and I mean, the property itself, the house, it doesn't really cost more. But running the actual land does. We pay for fuel for our farm equipment and also for all of the servicing costs and when anything goes wrong. Plus the fact, like I said, when we do have to do fencing, even if we do the labour ourselves, the cost of materials alone can get excessive when you're dealing with hundreds and hundreds of metres. Not only this, but the workload is also pretty heavy. So if it's not your main source of income and you're actually doing something else as well, then you're going to be pretty tired because you then come home and you have to work hard on your property to keep it under control because you don't want an overgrown acreage property. If you leave it to get overgrown, that's when you can end up with lots of snakes and things like that in your home. And to be fair, however much work you do on an acreage property, the work is never finished. There is always more to do. So it is incredibly time consuming. Mostly when you have an acreage property like this, like a hobby farm, you're not going to be as close to most conveniences as you would be if you were in a town block. You're unlikely to just be able to walk a minute to the nearest supermarket or anything like that. You're usually going to have to drive somewhere. This might not be the case for all acreages, especially if you managed to get one years and years ago in, you know, and you've had a kind of a town built around you. But mostly when you get an acreage block, you're not going to be close by to everything. So it might only be 10 minutes, it might be 20, but all that driving really does add up and take away from your day, especially when you've got so much more to do now. This isn't a point that I've personally found a problem, but I'm going to mention it anyway because some people would find it so. Living on acreage could be pretty isolating. Now, I mean, I'm sure you would move here and you'd have friends where you used to live and everything like that. But you spend a lot of time on your own property and a lot of time where you're not in the close vicinity of other people. So you could easily get isolated. As I said, personally, I've not felt this. I've actually felt fine about it all, but I get why people would. Ben, I want you to tell me, what is your favourite part of living on acreage?
I think the amount of space and freedom that you don't have to worry about your kids going in the garden making too much noise and stuff, or clearly the dogs doing a lot of barking and things, and yeah, just you're not so enclosed.
And what is your worst thing about living on acreage?
Then it sort of goes against what I've just said, but sometimes not being near people and being so far away from like the shops. You're just quite far away from everything, so you've got a lot of travelling to do to go anywhere.
Ask us your questions about life on acreage in the comments and we will try to answer those for you. Or if you've got your own experience and it's slightly different to ours, then please drop it in the comments. We would love to hear that. And we'll see you next week.
Bye.